Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
Welcome in. You heard the big voice. It's Nebraska Preps Postgame. I'm Damon Benning. That's Jacob Padilla. It's a heck of a night. It's,
a little chilly out there, but other than that,
you know
nice.
what? Especially compared to this afternoon, right? If you're at one of the early tilts, it was pleasant, right? It was almost warm, and then by the time we ended the night, it was a little chilly. The wind picked up a little bit, but hey, all in all, for October, the 30th, it was a fantastic day and night of football.
Yeah, and some big performances, some really good wins by a lot of teams, a couple upsets here and there, so it's a great night of high school football in Nebraska.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, right? The game that I think we thought was the biggest toss-up in A turned out to be that way, back and forth tilt with Gretna losing a close one to what's proven to be a very battle-tested and tough Kearney bunch. Yeah,
and that was 30-28 on the final there. That's the game that I went to, and it was really impressive because Gretna coming off the few weeks off, obviously they lost their last game against Lincoln Southeast and then got the first round bye. They came out the gates right away, 14-0. Looked like well-oiled machine, playing well. Then things turned around, and 24 straight by Kearney to take control. And then they were able to hold on late at the end. So impressive showing by Kearney, especially, again, coming back from that slow start, kind of being able to weather that storm of that high-powered Gretna attack and then really getting after them from that point on.
Yeah, as we go through the scores, we just started there with the 8-9 because that was the one seed did not hold.
Yeah, that's right? The only upset, in the second round for
Bellevue West doing Bellevue West things, 45-13. That game was interesting. I was telling you off air, Southwest starts with the onside kick. They drive down and score, and you're thinking, not but good on Southwest, right? Like going for the win. But Bellevue West, workmanlike. Not overly impressive. I think trying to just get through, and that may be a little bit of the theme of the night, right?
Yeah.
Just win and move on.
Yeah, and that's been the story for Bellevue West all year long. It's been so bumpy for them. Start, stop throughout the season. Now, again, you got that bye where normally it's a great thing to have a bye. This year, for that team in particular, I think Mike Huffman almost would have preferred to have a first-round game just to keep things going instead of taking another break and having to come back here after a week off. But like you said, they settled in after that falling behind right out the gates and 45-6 from that point on. So
that's Bellevue West. And, number 2, West Side, 45-3 over Grand Island. Again, the score not quite as indicative. I wasn't overwhelmed with West Side today. I felt like they were good, but not great, right? And it's hard for those teams that have been at the top to bring their A game every week, right? And they'd played Grand Island before. West Side's got to get healthy, though. A couple key injuries will be interesting to see how that plays out for them going forward, but pretty workmanlike in a 45-3 showing over Grand Island.
Now, I was watching a little bit of that on the stream earlier this afternoon, and kind of cool. A couple of touchdowns early, basically the same exact fade route from one corner, and came back to Cedric Hayward early, and then came back before halftime shortly to Kobe Bretz with an unbelievable catch over there along the sideline corner of the end zone. So, and Bretz had some really nice plays. He had a big run stop on a QB draw play, and then picked it off.
He's interesting. I don't know if I'm like enamored or you're almost sometimes you're frustrated. You watch him play for about 4 or 5 minutes, and you're thinking, wow, there are very few better out here than Kobe Bretz, and that's across the state. Then there's kind of some other times where he almost appears to almost be going through the motions a little bit, where you're like, ooh, I know he's got a little better in him than that, but when he gets ready, he's a fantastic player.
Well, and you kind of wonder, just like with so many playmakers on that defense, it's almost like, well, these guys got this play. They won't need me here playing in that safety spot. You got corners can play up tight, obviously, with Devontae Dickerson. You got Bo Lucas and Cade Haberman controlling things at the line of scrimmage. So you don't necessarily need him to make every single play. Mm-hmm. You just got to make sure that he's ready to make a play when it's in his area.
Yeah, and then we'll jump to number 3, Millard South. No, that game was 21-0 at the half against Millard West. It ends 21-7. pretty workman-like with Millard South is they're in week 2 really or 2.5 of the Gage kind of quarterback experiment, right? The Gage Stenger experiment.
Yeah, it's not too often that you're going to see a top 4 seed swap out their quarterback of multi-year starter with their best wide receiver, kind of reverse the roles there and keep things rolling. Yeah. But that's props to that staff for continuing to kind of tweak with things to try to figure out, all right, what gives us the best chance to win? Because they've got athletes, they just got to figure out where to put them and to get the most out of them. And props to Gage Stenger for coming in at that point. Again, he's been their best receiver all season long. In the last couple of weeks, he's gone back there, taken some snaps, and thrown the ball well enough to be effective.
The 4 seed Lincoln Southeast. Southeast is the 4, right?
Yep.
South is the 5, right? Southeast as the 4 seed. They're just steady Eddie, right? And I know, listen, we've got a lot of folks out there that watch a lot of high school football, and they're like, guys, I just don't see it with Lincoln Southeast. Yeah, I get it, right? They're not going to overwhelm you. They're not fancy on offense. They're pretty straightforward. They've proven to be a really, really good defensive team. They don't beat themselves. They got playmakers outside the numbers that they can utilize when they want to. Pretty business-like today with a shutout.
Yeah, well, 31-7.
31-7.
And it's another team that 2 weekends off because Southeast was the team that lost that game with Gretna.
Yeah.
They decided to shut things down, try to get things under control, ready so they can play in the postseason, and come out 31-7, kind of just control the game throughout, it seemed like, for the most part. Took care of business, and now you move on to the quarterfinals.
Well, this team, I've said this before, this is about the 3rd week in a row I've said it, Elkhorn South did pitch a shutout, 44-0. This is a good football team, right? like I've seen them 3 times now, and they've been better each time. Now, maybe a lot of that has to do with their health.
Yeah.
Each time I've seen them, they've got a few more pieces, right? Imsick is a little healthier at the end of the season than he was when I saw them at the beginning. They didn't have Makai Nelson Douglas the first time around. They didn't have Bo Weisler the first time around. You've got a healthy Ben Morin finally at the running back spot. That's a balanced team, and I really like Krause at the quarterback spot. Again, one of those guys where sometimes people will tell you all the things he isn't, but one of the things that he is he's a tough gamer, and he gives you another dimension on the ground as well.
Yeah, and that's the exact adjective that came into my mind as you were talking there. He is tough, and he is not afraid to go fight for that extra yard when he needs it. He's gonna hit you hard when he's running the ball, and he'll make the throws when he needs to as well.
Yeah, speaking of hard hitting, stopped back by the double dip at Phelps Field at Westside and saw Creighton Prep and Millard North, a very physical tilt. It was 14-10 at the half. There was a muff punt, kind of left the door open for Millard North. They scored a touchdown before half, went in 14-10. You kind of got the sense they were going to be in for a ball game there, but in the end, just the ability to play catch, pitch and catch, play catch over the top. I really like some of the young talent at Millard North, right? I like Isaiah McMorris. I like Boganowski. I really like Quaintance. Not a young guy necessarily, but really, really tough at the quarterback spot. But Prep just too much in the trenches. Glagowski in the middle. I tell you what, number 51 for a guy that's not very big, he looks the part in his gear. Maybe the best along that defensive line for Prep. And then you know what Bullocks and those guys can do for you. That was kind of a workman-like performance from Prep.
Yeah, and that was kind of the other game that we really had spotlighted coming out of last week. We're like, that's got a chance to be really competitive. And it looks like what I said, I think A.J. Rollins kind of got the kind of dagger score late there to kind of give them control. About 5 minutes ago, scored, made it 28-17 there, and then they kind of held on to win from there. So that's big-time play by Rollins, kind of stepping up there and kind of shutting the door on Millard North. And
then what I thought was it's going to fly under the radar. I know people are like, yeah, they beat them the first time around. But the way that Lincoln East handled North Platte,
42-0 on that one.
Yeah, they pitched a shutout. Now they get Glenn back.
That's a huge difference.
Right? It was 21-7 that first game, like we said. This time 42-0. Lot of offensive pieces for Lincoln East. Now the shutout is what surprised me a little bit.
And it was 21-7 the last time they played, and this week they scored 28 points in the second quarter alone. So Lincoln East definitely kind of got going here offensively. And like you said, they've got a lot of different pieces that they can play offensively. They got a lot of receivers they spread the ball around to. They get a handful of different guys carry the ball. And then Noah Walters there kind of running the show. He's
a really good player.
I was watching watched most of the first half on the stream on that one too. And it's the first time I got a chance to see Lincoln East, and I was impressed with the way that Walters kind of kept plays alive, made plays with his feet when he needed to.
Pull your hair out, won't you? Yeah. He's hard. He's kind of like trying to bottle smoke, right? You just can't quite get it all.
Yeah,
he's slippery out there.
And then Carter Glenn, who I believe dislocated his shoulder a few weeks back,
maybe
came back and right away scored their first touchdown, broke a tackle, dove for the end zone. Like, all right, I'm back. I'm ready to go here. And it's a great story for him to be able to return for the postseason and help his team make this run here.
Yeah, we talked about 8-9 being the toss-up, really. It was the game that we kind of featured last week with Kearney and Gretna. That was the only game that didn't hold seed, but not a huge, like it wouldn't have shocked me either way. That game went about like I thought, nip and tuck the whole way.
Yeah, so that game, it really turned on a pick six for Kearney, where about near midfield. I was following the ball, so I didn't see quite what happened, where the receiver was or kind of who Zane Flores was targeting there. But Caden Miller came in there, picked it off, ran it all the way back, and that really kind of started the Kearney comeback. And from there, they really picked it up defensively, started getting more pressure on Flores, and he was just a little bit off from the last play. It's sophomore, playing in his first playoff game, obviously taking the last few weeks off, so it's kind of an interesting spot to put that kid in. And he made some big plays a little bit later on, but I think he struggled a little bit there. Kind of it got into his head a little bit, and I think this will be a great experience for him moving forward. Obviously, he loses those two dynamic senior receivers that he's been throwing to all year, but he's got some good good talent, underclassmen. So I think kind of being in this spot will only serve him well moving forward. He's got 2 more years there at Gretna.
So you talked about his stats early. He got off to a pretty quick start, right?
Yeah, it was 12 of 14 for 160 yards, had a touchdown, and then he rushed in a touchdown as well. So that was at that 14-0 start there. And third play in scrimmage, it's 3rd and 2. They call him the play out there. They get ready to go, and Coach Kill comes in. I don't like this. Calls a timeout. They regroup, send back out there. Deep shot right over the top to I believe. I think it was Marshall. It was Marshall or Jackson, but over the top, caught it, 72-yard touchdown. So that was definitely a great touchdown there by Coach Kale. But again, props to Kearney for weathering that storm, bouncing back from falling down 2 scores and controlling most of the rest of the game from there.
Yeah, people, I said this last week, you agreed, right? You talk about Kearney, battle tested, right? They start the season 0-3, and you're thinking, wow, this isn't a Coach Cool bunch. But then you go back and you look at the schedule.
Lost to, yeah.
Lincoln Southeast in the opener. West Side in week 2. Bellevue West in week 3.
And then they lost some games too. Obviously, they had a smaller schedule like some of the other teams there where they lost some teams to COVID problems. So
they're the only team. They're the only team in the state that has played 4 of the top 5 teams. They've lost to Lincoln Southeast, West Side, Bellevue West, and Elkhorn South. Yep. The Elkhorn South went to overtime. It was 28-21. Kearney's got my attention, and they had it last week.
And now we see with what Elkhorn South did, that was a lot more Kearney than it was Elkhorn South with that going to overtime, I think. So I think they're really starting to prove that they're playing their best football right now. And, Preston Pearson, their quarterback there, he is a tough guy. He makes everything go for them.
Yeah, so here's the interesting thing, and I've said this before about Bellevue West. A couple of weeks ago, I said they're almost impossible to defense unless you've seen them before. You have to have some sort of kind of feel on how they want to play you. Now, is it an advantage for Kearney that they've seen Bellevue West before? The only team outside of Southeast quick score tonight that's had a lead on Bellevue West. Or is it a disadvantage because you know about that offense at Bellevue West? They'll have a chance to be fully healthy defensively. they can mow you. They can mow you down in a hurry if you line up and let them know where you are.
Yeah. So again, that's going to be one where you cannot let Bellevue West get a couple of big plays early. Kearney's got to be able to hang in there, make them earn everything they're going to get. You can't give up the 50-yard score. You can't give up those long, those big plays there where it just kind of demoralizes you defensively. You've got to make them march up and down the field. If they're going to go score, make them earn it. And that's the only way they're going to be able to hang in that one.
Yeah, if you're keeping score at home, it's number 1 Bellevue West against number 9 Kearney. You've on the top half of the bracket, you got number 4 versus number 5 with Lincoln Southeast and Elkhorn South. You got number 3 versus number 6. This one's interesting. Millard South and Creighton Prep.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom half of the bottom part of the bracket, you have a very tough-minded Lincoln East team coming to Phelpsfield to take on number 2 ranked Westside. A lot of good matchups.
Yeah. And this is kind of what we've been waiting for all year long. We identified kind of that top tier of those teams, and now we've made it through a few weeks, and that's all that we're left here with this final 8 here. So we'll see if if Bellevue West, if Westside can come out and really get off to fast starts, if they can come out and play their best football. Because I think it's pretty fair to say when those two are playing at their best, talent-wise, that they're a step above everybody else. But I think those two middle games, 4-5 and that 3-6, they'll have a chance to be really good.
Yeah, I'll be the one that has my attention. They all do. Yeah. They're fantastic games. The 4-5 with Elkhorn South and Lincoln Southeast. If that's the game where I feel like I know who both teams are. I know who both teams are really, really well. We'll see who can kind of out-mirror image the other. They play a lot alike. Close to the vest, don't take a lot of chances offensively. I give the advantage at quarterback a little bit to Elkhorn South, though, which may be the difference. Now, we'll see, right? It's a little bit more quarterback-centric offense, right, with the ball handling, the jet sweep, the QB run game. It's a little bit different than how Southeast likes to attack you, but that one right there is the one I've got on the docket. What about you?
But yeah, and that how often is it you kind of star the linebackers for both sides? You got Jake Applegate for Southeast and Makai Nelson Douglas for Elkhorn South, and those two guys obviously both play offense as well. They both stars of those defense, kind of the heart and soul of those units. So those are definitely the guys to circle on that one. But this will be really interesting, the Millard South and Creighton Prep game, with kind of the different look that Millard South is now with Stanger at quarterback versus what they were doing early on with Urban kind of taking all those snaps. It'll be interesting to see if Prep, if they've gotten over kind of the stuff that has really cost them throughout the season, where they've shot themselves in the foot, they've dug themselves big holes with just not sharp play and bad mistakes. And if they've been able to polish that up, and if they come out here and play good football from start to finish, that'll have a chance, I think, to go down to the wire.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've seen Prep a couple of times now. When they're good, they're playing their best football when they're good up front. And I don't mean along the offensive line, because that's kind of a dumb moment. That defensive line, when they're playing and they're active, they're a different football team, because I think they're pretty good on the perimeters in terms of coverage. They do a good job out there, and so it's all about their interior. And they played a physical game tonight. That one was not for the faint of heart. There was some good, solid, hard hitting. It was an extremely physical game, and now you've got kind of a week to get your senses and get back healthy, because nobody really talks much about the physicality of Millard South, but along that offensive and defensive lines, they got some fellas. They'll get after you pretty good.
Yep. Want to look over at Class B now?
Yeah, Class B. Ask and you shall receive, right? You want to give a rundown of those scores?
Yeah, and again, pretty much like a lot of chalk, but there was one big upset. We'll start at the top there, though, with Bennington kind of taking control, doubling up Seward, 52-26 there, top seed, 1 versus 16. In the 8 versus 9, you have Plattsmouth pulling out a 13-9 win.
Real business. Like I was talking to one of the affiliates from NSAA who was at that game. That was a 5:30 tilt, and I wanted to run over from Westside to maybe put a few eyeballs on that one. But, boy, talk about a grudger. And he's a little back and forth. Plattsmouth gets the late touchdown to kind of listen. I mean, 13-9, and Manassas I think got one late to give them the lead. But wow,
Well, and that's one I flipped over on the stream earlier, too, on that one. And I think first drive, Manassas rips off a big run, breaks 2-3 tackles along the way, marches Plattsmouth down in the red zone, and they don't go another inch. They end up on fourth down. They go for it and get stuffed. So after that big run, nothing on the first drive. And so good job by the McCook defense there. And I think that kind of set the tone for the game that it was going to be from then on out. Again, 22 total points.
Yeah, quietly, Plattsmouth plays good defense.
Yeah.
They remember Norris had to convert the fourth, and I believe it was either 13 or 16, and they scored.
Wow.
On that one to change the complexion of that. That was with about 4 minutes to go in that one. And, Plattsmouth is another one of those teams that has played everybody now. It seems like, and people wondered about their schedule early on. It stiffened up for them late, and then this team who I can't quite get the cap on Aurora.
Yeah, right. They're all over the place. They look really good at times.
Yeah.
They knock off one of those teams, but then you turn around and lose a game that you shouldn't. That's one of those teams that's been all over the place, but very impressive today. 54-3 win over Scottsbluff.
Yeah, that's Hastings' only loss, right? And they hammered them.
Yeah, and then they came back and lost the next week. Yeah,
so it's like it's a toss-up. Norris and Beatrice, for as good as I feel about Waverly and the direction they're trending, and they sent a message tonight, was at 35-7 or 42-8 over Blair.
Yep.
I'm not so sure where I'm at with Norris.
Yeah, and they got the win there, but it's only a one-score game, 35-27 over Beatrice. Props to Beatrice for making that a heck of a game. But
well-coached team.
Yes, that's for sure. But Norris, you kind of wonder. Obviously, they've got a lot of talent there, but kind of what's going on there with giving up 27 points there to Beatrice? That's kind of, you worry about the defense there and just overall the line play that we talked about last week coming off of that Waverly game. But that's the 4-seed advances there over 13 Beatrice. And we'll get the 4-5 Norris versus Aurora.
Yeah, which should be a good one. Number 3, Elkhorn. Taking care of business against Groves 53-7. No real surprises there. That's exactly what they're capable of.
Yeah, and Aiden Young kind of setting the tone right out the bat. Touchdown, scored their first touchdown, then came back and got a pick and set up another short field for Elkhorn. They marched it right in and scored from there and never looked back. So it's a team that, again, has had a lot of talent. They've kind of been up and down as well. They got a big win there late in the season, and now you see them kind of taking care of business here, 53-7. So that's 3. And they'll move on to play Waverly. We talked about in that game.
Yeah, the team that I don't think anybody wants to play.
Yeah.
Right? They kind of sleptwalk their way through the first half of the season. They make a few changes along that offensive line. You shuffle some pieces in. Looks like a brand new football team as they send a clear message to Blair tonight, 42-8. And it's not so sure there's a team playing better right now than Waverly.
Yeah, on both sides of the ball. I think that you can definitely make a strong case for them coming off that. Again, just giving up one score there. And so you get Elkhorn versus Waverly, 3 versus 6. Another seedings hold in that one as well.
It should be a low-scoring slugfest, right? I like to run the football. You like to run the football. Let's play this one in a phone booth. You get the sense that the team that can generate the most big plays, and it may be a small number.
Yeah.
It may be 2 or 3 plays of 20-plus yards, but the team that can get the most of those, it's just hard for me to believe you're going to put together 12, 13-play drives.
And that was the impressive part outside of the line play and controlling the line of scrimmage was Cole Murray making some of those big throws down the field.
He's teased us the second half of the season, hasn't he?
Correct.
With their 5-6 passes a game, I mean, they're chunking you when they're doing it.
So that's going to be big. And then obviously we know Elkhorn's got some talented athletes out there at receiver. Is Grant Gushow, are they going to give him a chance to go out there and make some big throws and big moments?
And perhaps the shocker of the night.
Yeah.
And it's still just a 7-10.
Yeah.
But it is the defending state champs. And Grand Island Northwest, bouncing back in a big way to beat Scott 27-20.
Yeah, man. It just feels like the season just obviously Scott has been dominant in Class B for a long time there. Yeah, that's exactly the word for it. They've had guys joining the team late. They've had guys out, in and out of the lineup, injuries different times, obviously guys quarantining. You never really got a chance to see what I think they wanted to be, what they thought they could be. And now we won't get that chance because they weren't able to take care of business here. You said that 7-10, you wouldn't necessarily call that a massive upset, but it felt like the top 6 or 7 in B, you felt like those were kind of maybe a step above the 8, 9, 10 at range. And tonight, Grand Island Northwest proving that wasn't necessarily the case.
I think they've earned the. Now, Grand Island Northwest has to kind of be back on the radar. We wanted to believe. We're like, okay, you lay an egg, you bounce back, you get this one. I think you're kind of feeling good about Grand Island Northwest again.
Yeah, and like we said, playing your best football at this time of the year, that is a big win for them. Just obviously you get a chance to move on, but that confidence, you're the team that knocked out last year's champs. You're the one that made for sure that, hey, somebody new is going to be taking home the trophy. So that's a huge thing in that Class B because we talked, what was that winning streak that Waverly finally ended? How many in a row did Scott win?
Yeah, well, 26.
Yeah, or
28.
Yeah, so to get that win under your belt heading in here to the next round, that's huge for that team from a confidence standpoint, let alone just the fact that, hey, we get a chance to keep playing now. Yeah,
we wanted to see what happened last week against Hastings. They fell short 30-19. The only other 2 losses, listen, they lose to Bennington in the opener. Nothing to sneeze at there. That's a good loss. But now the Scotts Bluff one is a little bit like,
yeah,
okay,
that's kind of the one that gave you some pause in terms of including them in that top group and B where everybody's being everybody. You suffer a win like that from the team that's obviously they made the state tournament or whatever made to this point, but Scotts Bluff lost so much from last year. It's kind of a rebuilding year for them. So props for them to make it to this point where they did, but that's a game that you don't. If you think you're going to be a contender in the state playoffs, that's a game that you don't lose.
Yeah.
So props to them for kind of bouncing back, getting over that, and now getting this big win to kind of cancel that out.
Yeah, and then the 2-seed Hastings, which is weird to hear Roncalli as a 15, right? But obviously rebuilding after a heck of a 4-year run.
Yeah.
They get it done tonight. Was
47-21.
And don't look now, but Hastings only has the 1 loss, right? They have the 1 loss to Aurora. I know people aren't in love with their schedule, right? They beat North Star, they beat McCook, they hammered Scotts Bluff, they did a number on Gehring, they blanked Seward, they beat York, they lost to Aurora. I still think the win against Grand Island Northwest was a good win, right? The 30-19 last week, and they get it done tonight against Roncalli.
Yeah, and you look at a lot of these teams, good quarterback play can really make the difference, and they've got an argument for having the best quarterback in the class, and Jarrett Sinek, who can do it all for that team.
The one team that truly plays the basketball on grass, right? I mean, the spread, they play fast, they get it out quick. They can throw it all over the yard. They've got a lot of versatility. Now we'll see if they can hunker down a little bit. They're the opposite of what had been the kryptonite for a team like, Grand Island Northwest, where they're going to play this one wide open, and that should be a pretty entertaining game.
Yep. So get a chance rematch there from what we've said was a good one during the regular season there with the 2 versus 10 there, and Hastings versus Grand Island Northwest, our final Class B matchup.
Yeah, and played just what will be 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what is it in B that you kind of like when you take a look at the matchups? You got to start with Elkhorn and Waverly, right? At least for me, that's the one that has my attention.
No, absolutely. Like we talked about, Waverly is just on an absolute roll now. And so you've got to see Elkhorn. Can you be the one to kind of put a stop to that momentum? Do you have enough toughness up front? Because they're really, obviously we know they've got the receivers. We know they've got great backs. Is that line on both sides of the ball going to be able to step up and really control that game? Because we know what Waverly's going to do.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see. There's a few more weapons on the outside for Elkhorn. Can they find a way to get the Graggerts, the Drew Christos involved in the passing game where they're a tough matchup? Those are big, long, strong, athletic bodies.
Yeah, and you had Dane Peterson, guy can go up and win a jump ball too. So you've got 3 guys there that can go get the ball. So if you give them a chance to go make plays one-on-one, I like their odds.
Yeah.
They just got to be able to protect the quarterback long enough and call those plays, be a little bit, open it up just a little bit.
A vastly different team than the one that lost 13-7 to Elkhorn. I believe that was in week 3 or 4.
That was an early one.
Right? And they've played Grand Island Northwest as well. I mean, no real shame in what's going on at Waverly, right? They had the little midseason lull where they stubbed their toe back-to-back weeks against Elkhorn and Grand Island Northwest. And if you're looking at that in terms of quality losses, those belong in the discussion.
Yeah, and that's all it is in Class B is quality losses because everybody beat each other. These final 8, all these teams have already played for the most part. We've got a lot of rematches here, a lot of chances for teams to kind of overcome some of those losses that they suffered earlier in the season.
How do you kind of see Bennington and Plattsmouth playing out without Tyler LeClaire?
Yeah, that's a huge piece from that. I talked about it, I think. Were you at that one? The early?
No,
okay.
that was the one where I was.
Yeah,
and I'm going back and forth. I'm like, is that the one? Do I do it?
But yeah, that was a good, fairly competitive game. If I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember what the score was for that one. But yeah, that changes things without Tyler LeClaire because he's a guy that made a huge difference on both sides of the ball. He's one of these kind of do-it-all guys that really is kind of the heart and soul of that team. That is their identity. Everything they did kind of branched off of what he did. So obviously they still got a really good quarterback. They still got really good receivers. Their other back there is pretty solid as well. So they've got enough offensive talent. It'll be interesting to see. I think the biggest place you're going to miss him is defense against Manassas there.
Yeah.
Because he's a guy that was not afraid to come in there and deliver the big blow when the run fits.
One of my favorites in Class B. Should be a fantastic week, and we'll be back to cap it all. It gets hectic now, right? You don't have a lower than a 10 seed in B, nothing lower than a 9 in A, and it has been a gauntlet to get there.
And I think this is the point that we've been waiting for all season. As we've seen some of these kind of matchups play out, you kind of start eyeing this time of the year where, all right, these teams are going to be playing against each other. So
rubber meet the road. That's the man, the myth, the legend. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm Damon Benning. We'll be back next week. It's Nebraska Preps Postgame.
A Hurrdat Media Production.